But when they think about third world, they think of poverty. When I hear that, I'm like, what? So we say, okay, well, Ghana is a developing country. Developing to what? Ghana will never be the West, and it should never be the West. They shouldn't be comparable to that level. So we could say Ghana is an emerging economy. Everybody owns a poly tank because we know that, you know, you may only get water 3 times out of the week. If I come to the States and I have cities on me, it just means nothing. Like, what is it? Country that is seen to look after the elite rather than look after its actual citizens. Again, problem, solutions, money. I've said it before, you know, religion holds the country back. You know, welcome to Ghana. Hey guys, welcome back. All right, today's video, I want to talk about okay, so I've seen it in the comment section and I've been ignoring it for a long time. But one of my pet peeves is when people call Ghana a third world country. I'm like, it's not a third world country, it's a developing country. And then I started to go a bit deeper into it. Like, is Ghana really developing? Like, why are we calling it a third world country? Why do people see it as a third world I can't even talk. A third world country. So I thought today we'd address it in a video. So I decided to do a bit more research and dig a bit deeper into why people refer to, I'm going to talk about Ghana specifically, as a third world country. What does that term actually mean? I think that that's the best place to start, right? What does it mean to be a third world country? So now, sometimes to be able to define what it means by a third world country, we have to have a little bit more understanding, right? So third world country can be defined by poverty and infrastructure. I feel like a lot of people, when they think about third world, they think of poverty, right? You immediately think of, you know, how we've been trained, right? The starving children with the big pot bellies, you know, like nothing around them, out in the desert somewhere, everybody's just hungry. That's kind of like what you think of when you think of third world, right? And, you know, infrastructure problems, all of that stuff. A third world country can also be to do with mindset and the systems that the country has in place. And so we kind of have to understand what third world country is. So there is the perception of what we see third world as in the poverty side. That's what most people will probably think of. But then it is a lot to do with mindset and the systems that the country has in place. That, I would say, is probably more so to do with what actual third world country is. But let's break it down, right? What constitutes as a first world country? A first world country are places like that kind of align with UK, US. You know, those are developed countries, right? And then you have second world countries, which we don't really hear about so much, but that includes like the Soviet Union, right? That doesn't really exist anymore, but that was what was classed as a second world country. Now, third world country are places like Africa, Asia, you know, those are the places that people see as, those are like, yeah, those are definitely third world countries. That's how people globally see it. That's how they would categorize it. So where did the term third world country come from, right? Gosh, that was a tongue twister. So the term third world country actually started during the Cold War, right? And it was associated with poverty, the breakdown of communities and all of that good stuff. And that has stuck for a very long time. So that is how the term third world country came from, right? But then now it's been applied to every country that looks like it's poor. So that's where the term is really stemming from. So it started from the Cold War and it's just maintained for that whole time. But really, to call a country third world, it's the reason I don't personally like it is because I feel like it's politically incorrect to say that. Because it implies something that's substandard. It's not quite there yet. But I mean, even if we match it to what we would class as developing, I prefer to say Ghana is a developing country. Even if we look at it in that term, it's still kind of substandard. It means like we're not there yet, which I think is fair to an degree, because when you come to a place like Ghana, you know, certain systems are not in place. Infrastructure is not great. You know, there are certain things that it lacks. So if you compare it to a country like the US or the UK, you're going to say, well, this Africa or Ghana doesn't seem quite there yet. So you could say, I would say that is more developing than a third world country, because let's be honest, Ghana has riches. Ghana or Africa in general is not poor. And that's something that we need to understand. It's not poor. There's so much mismanagement that has happened, but I'll touch on that a bit later in the video. But yeah, that's pretty much what it is. So I prefer the term developing. I'll be interested to know what you guys think though. What do you guys think? Do you think would you say it's developing, or would you prefer to call it third world? I don't know. Third world, just when I hear that, I'm like, what? Which third world country? Like, I just don't like the term personally. I just feel like it's not PC, and it's not being associated with the country in the right way. So the term developing is definitely a better term than using third world. But, words have meanings that sometimes, how can I put this? Sometimes we use words, right? But there's an association with them that can be negative that we're not even aware of because we haven't thought about it. So even when we use the term like developing, right? So we say, okay, well, Ghana is a developing country. Developing to what? We have to be careful that when we say developing, does that mean that we are developing to reach the level of the UK and the US because that is the standard? And if that is the standard, who made that the standard? Who said that this is how it should be? Now, I'm not in disagreement because I understand that these countries, right, they have systems in place which help the country work in the way that it does. And Ghana does not have that yet. But Ghana will never be the West, and it should never be the West. They shouldn't be comparable to that level. But just calling it developing, it can make you think, without you realizing it, that we're not there yet. There's something that needs to be done all the time, but we can be developing, but we have to understand what we're developing to. Are we just developing so that we have a better system for those that are in Ghana? An address system, things that work. Is that what we're developing to? Or are we saying we're developing because we want to be like the UK and the US? There needs to be a different differentiation. And you have to almost tell yourself all the time that it's not negative, that it is just developing. We are trying to put systems into place so that the country moves I don't know what's going on today. So that the country moves smoother, but we're not trying to be the West. We're not trying to be UK. We're not trying to be US. We're not trying to be those countries. We're trying to be an entity on our own, and we're trying to get better. Another term that we can use actually, which you do hear floating about, but I think we don't really use it in the way, we don't really use it, right? So we could say Ghana is an emerging economy, right? In terms, and in some respects, it is an emerging economy, right? There's so many things that are about to happen. There's so much development. There's so much innovation and things that are happening, but we're not there yet. So actually, I kind of like that. Ghana is an emerging economy. I don't know. Let me know what you think about that. I kind of like that. I feel like that feels better. That feels like then we're more solid as a country rather than, you compare it to third world and developing. I feel like emerging economy seems like something you'd want to be a part of. Like you want to get in there early. Okay. If that headline was all over the news, Ghana is an emerging economy, it feels like it would attract more investors. And I feel like that's what Ghana needs. It needs people that believe in the things that the country is trying to do, that type of investment. Like, even, I'm not talking about global corporations to come in and do whatever they do. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about it as individuals. We're like, okay, yeah, I want to be a part of what Ghana's doing. I want to set up my life in Ghana. I want to have some footing in Ghana because it is an emerging economy. And I know at some point, things are going to boom. We should be able to look at it like that. So I feel like emerging economy kind of holds on to that concept a bit more than developing even, because there are a lot of businesses that have looked into, wanting to do some type of investment in Ghana, but they're always put off because they feel like the systems that Ghana has is not there yet. And I'll keep on saying it, that, in the problems that Ghana has, that's where the opportunity is. If you solve these problems and you create the solutions for them, you blow up. And so for a lot of people that want to come in and invest, unless they can see that the solutions are where the money is, it makes it harder for people. People are just afraid to invest because there are so many horror stories, or they think that there's so many horror stories. They haven't really experienced what Ghana is really like and the actual opportunities are here. But if we start associating Ghana with an emerging economy, then, hey, that sounds a hell of a lot better to an investor rather than a developing country or a third world country, which no, We don't want that. So I touched on it earlier where I was talking about what makes it third world, right? So I said the infrastructure and the systems that Ghana has currently. Okay, so let's just break that down a little bit more. So some of the things that goes against Ghana, you know, as I said, the infrastructure, we have bad roads, drainage systems aren't great. You know, I recently did a video on flooding. You can go and check that out if you haven't checked it out already. You know, things just are not running in the way that it should to benefit the people. You know, we have like unstable electricity, water situations not great. Everybody owns a poly tank because we know that, you know, you may only get water 3 times out of the week. And if you don't have a poly tank for 4 days of the week, you have no water. So everybody has to have, it's like the people have to create systems that will accommodate what the government is giving us. So if the government is only giving us water for 3 days, we need to make sure that for 4 days, the other 4 days that we're good. So therefore we implement the polytank situation. If you don't know what polytank is, it's just a huge tank that stores water for you. So that if the main pipe goes off, the water pipe goes off, you still have access to water. It's just like storing in a huge bucket, basically. And so when we have electricity problems, we have water problems, you know, we don't have a great public transport system, then these things, you know, they kind of push us down the rankings a bit. And so that's how people define it as being a third world country in that sense, because certain things that you would think are basic, water, electricity, roads, public transport, these are things that people would say should be like standard, like these things should not be luxuries. They're just standard that everybody should have access to, and we're not necessarily having that. And so that's why people categorize it as it being a third world country. Another thing that doesn't do well is because of the country's economic dependence, right? We rely so much on importation, you know, countries coming to bail us out. Although every country has debt, you know, Africa, Ghana, you know, we rely heavily on what comes from outside in. And without that, you know, the country's going to be a mess. And so things like that, again, push us down in the rankings. You know, even when you look at job opportunities, trying to find a job, one of the first things we always tell people when you're trying to move to Ghana is don't come looking for a job. You're going to have to create a business, because job opportunities are so limited, even for Ghanaians who have never left the country. Job opportunities for them are very, very tough. And so when a country doesn't have great job prospects for its people, it doesn't bode well in terms of where you fall on the third world, first world, second world, whatever categories. You know, it doesn't bode well for you in that sense. Also, you know, we have to be honest, the currency, the city is kind of all over the place. The fluctuations that it has, it's not stable. That's one of the things that investors often like to complain about, right? The fact that the city is not stable. So a lot of people, when they come to the country and they want to invest, they want to price in dollars because they know that the city is not stable, and they rather hold whatever it is that they have in dollars to make sure that their investment stays secure. And that's one of the biggest things why a lot of people don't come and invest, just because of how unstable the city can be. So until the city does kind of get a better footing, we're always going to be like that. You can't go to any country and ask for the city or ask for your city to be changed. Like, what? Nobody's changing the city. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like the value of the money is so down that it's like, I don't want to say it's worthless, but it's like, why, unless you're in Ghana, why do you want the city? Like, what purpose would it be to have the city if you don't live in that country? Like, do you know what I'm saying? I can have dollars when I'm in Ghana, and I'm like, okay, I've got dollars. I feel like I've got some money on me. If I come to the States and I have cities on me, it just means nothing. Like, what is it? If I drop it on the floor, no one's even going to pick it up, because unless you know what it is, no one's going to pick it up, because it doesn't have the same weight as money from the West, you know? Okay, I already touched on this one as well, which again is mismanagement of funds. You know, there is corruption that goes on within Ghana. We all know it. We all know it. I don't know who does it, but, you know, that's what I hear, that there's corruption. You know, funds get allocated for certain things. It doesn't quite make its way there, or it's mismanaged. And so while we have these kind of problems within the country, I want to say people won't take it seriously, but it just makes it harder for people to want to help to develop the country and for the country to be where it's supposed to be and to come out of this bracket of being third world. It definitely starts from the top. A country that is seen to look after the elite rather than look after its actual citizens is always going to be classed as a third world or a developing country, because, you know, it's seen to be only rich people that are benefiting, rich people who are able to take advantage of what is on offer in the country, but everybody else is suffering just so the rich can stay rich and the poor just remain poor. So that's another factor that adds to its developing status or its third world status. Also, when we think about the term third world, you know, we think of it, as I said before, poverty, hopelessness, all of that stuff. But Ghana is not a hopeless country. Ghana has so much potential if you will give it the opportunity to be seen, right? You have to dig a bit deeper. It's like you're going to have to dig for the diamonds. The diamonds ain't laying on top of the floor for you to just walk by and say, oh, there's a diamond there. No. You're going to have to dig a bit to find it. So it's... the gems that are in Ghana are hidden. You have to come and find them. But therefore, you might have to get a little bit dirty before you find, you know, the gold or the diamonds. You're going to have to, you know, do a bit of manual labor to get there. And that's the part that people don't want to do. People prefer to be able to walk in to something that they can see and understand that works, especially those of us that are used to it. I mean, Ghanaians who don't understand or have never had exposure to what certain systems are, right? Simple things like I order clothes online and then by tomorrow it comes. Like those systems, just because we have a postal system, you know, if you've never been exposed to those things, it's almost like you don't know what you're missing. But those of us that have seen those things and we come to Ghana and those things are not there, it just makes us feel like, it's frustrating, because it's like, why does it not work? Why do we have to do these long processes? Why is it when I need to top up my phone, I have to do so many numbers before I can even get to topping up my phone? You know, things like that are annoyances for people. But, you know, again, problems, solutions, money. And I'll also give Ghana this, that although Ghana does have a lot of problems, right, there is a lot of creativity. Let's not get it twisted. There are Ghanaians who are very, very intelligent, and there's a lot of creativity that happens. There are things happening on a daily basis. I remember some years ago, the guy, I can't remember how, he's like a student and he built a car from scratch. Like how is this, like these are things, there's brilliance within our problems that we have. There is levels of brilliance in there that people are smart, they're doing things, but they're not given the opportunities for it to really blow up and for them to really be showcased. But if you want to, again, if you want to be entrepreneur, if you are entrepreneurial, Ghana's the place to be, because you have ample opportunity in which to develop things that the country doesn't already have, because the country is not already equipped with certain things. Your creative juices can flow as far as you want, and somebody else has not done it yet. You're literally starting on a new playing field, and you know you're fresh, so it gives you that opportunity too. So I'm just going to start to wrap up this video, but what I really do want to say is, when people see that Ghana is a third world or a developing country, right, it's often more so to do with mindset. It's about how people think, how the people of Ghana also think. You know, we're held back on a lot of things. I've done it before. I've said it before. You know, religion holds the country back because people have been indoctrinated into certain things. So they're unable to critically think about certain things. They just take what they're told without questioning. You know, that whole aspect, it holds the country back. That's what I said when I did the video. Like, if people are unable to question and to challenge certain things, right, in the right ways, then what becomes of the country? We just accept it and we're just stuck. We're just stuck in this time zone where nothing ever develops, because you know, Ghanaians have been told that this is how it is and never question it. And so we all just go about our business and nothing is ever changing because this is how it is. That's how we're told that it's supposed to be. And so we never look at anything else, and therefore we never develop and we never get anywhere. We're just stuck. And that's pretty much what has happened to the country. We're just stuck in this place where nobody's thinking outside the box and thinking, hey, well, actually, if we did this, it'd be better. You know, it's not happening, and it holds us back. A lot of the time, I think I can pretty much say a lot of us are guilty of it. We are guilty of, you know, starting to accept inefficiency, starting to accept that, you know, corruption does happen. It's annoying. Yes, it does happen. And we, as I said before, you know, you kind of get desensitized to these things. After a while, you're just like, you know, welcome to Ghana. It's that kind of thing. Those are the things that hold us back. You know, so until mindsets change, it's going to hold back the physical progress of the country. And that is as simple as it is. So in conclusion, would I say that Ghana is a third world country? No, I don't like the term third world. I'm never going to reference Ghana as being a third world country. Developing, yes. I would say, yes, it is definitely a developing country, but I don't think that we are beyond being able to get there as a country. But it's definitely going to start with the mindset of the people. Once we can change people's mindsets, then we can begin to move forward. I feel like that is really what's slowing down the country. It's not even that, you know, Ghana is riddled with poverty and the systems are not great. But if we have people who want better and do better, then it will move a lot faster, and we can potentially come out of that developing stage and just be who we are. I'm not trying to say that we should aspire to be a first world country. That's not what we're aspiring to be. We should aspire to be a country that is able to be self-sufficient and, you know, be developed in our own way, not to the standard that the West says is developed, but be developed in our own way. But that's only going to happen when mindsets begin to change and when people become serious. And that's all I've got to say on that. I'd love to know what you think about what I've said in the comment section. Do you agree with what I've said? Do you disagree? I'm open to hearing it. If you're going to talk with respect and, you know, all of that good stuff, then I'm happy to respond. But if you're going to be rude, I'm not going to respond to anything. So that's it. That's all I've got to say. If you're wanting to move to Ghana and you would like to do a one-to-one consultation with me, send me an email to dela@moredodela.com and we can arrange a time for that to be done. Make sure you check out my other videos if you haven't. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I hope you love it all. Don't forget to like this video, comment and subscribe if you haven't done already. And that's it. All right, now, I can't remember how I end this video now. I went all over the place. Now I can't remember. Okay, if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Don't forget to also like, comment and share this video. Until next time, I am out. Nutifafa.